All right, so here we go, guys. I'm going to just use Keynote and knock out these 200 slides for you. Actions speak louder than words. Uh, Gestures, we use gestures. They naturally emphasize and add meaning to our words. Most gestures are unplanned. So the good news about that is when we speak, our bodies reflect our excitement, our anger, our confusion. If we're frustrated, it usually just comes through. Hand gestures are an important part of the conversation, and we can use them to make a point, which is really an annoying gesture. So don't point. They can be used to make a point. Let's see, I made that point already. They can give away how we're feeling. Hand gestures often give away how we're really feeling. And why are we focusing so much on hands for body language? Is because we already know how to read faces, right? Faces are pretty simple and straightforward. You've been reading faces your whole life. So we focus on hands because hands, when we're in a business meeting, really that's what we've got to work with. We've got the hands, the torso, the head, the shoulders. The feet tell the real story, but you can't really see them. If you can get somebody out from behind a desk, then you've got a good idea of what's going on. But so we work with what we've got. So hand gestures are really, really easy to read. That's the good news. It's really hard to hide what's going on with your hands. So when you're reading body language, you need to recognize congruency and incongruence. Basically, what that means is that if you, for example, if you say yes and you nod your head yes, your actions and words are congruent. And you are shaking your head no. If you're shaking your head no and you're verbally saying yes, you don't match and your actions are not congruent. And that gesture, that example, lets us know there's something going on. We call that a micro expression. So, if you ask somebody, hey, listen, I'm moving this weekend. Do you think you can help me out and move? And they go, ooh, this weekend? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, they're not going to come help you move. Chances are. So that nod shake example, like I said, is an example of micro expression. That hand body language is generally more obvious than a micro expression. We're not going to get into micro expressions here. We're going to really focus on hands and palm displays because that's what's going to help you sell a lot of stuff. We'll get into that really specifically on how you can use palm displays to sell more stuff because that's what we want to do. And even over the phone, and how doing this eventually is going to help you sell more stuff even online. As crazy as that sounds. So hand gestures can also display congruency and incongruence. Incongruence is generally a sign of dishonesty. Somebody may be lying. May is the key word here. May be lying, or just may be discomfort or disagreement. So when you're in a position of authority, a lot of times somebody may be in disagreement with you. They might just not be able to say it or feel they can't say their honest opinion, or they just, they're not going to speak up. So it doesn't make them a liar. People love the lie detection aspect of body language. It just doesn't mean somebody is just not telling the truth. It just means that they might not agree with you or they're just uncomfortable. That's really what we're gauging here, is discomfort around certain topics, as you'll see. So the best practice, I like to call it homework, is next time you're in a restaurant, watch conversations and see how they evolve, because perceptions, especially in conversations, continue to evolve during any given conversation. They have ups, they have downs. And the reason this matters to you is because during a sales call, your prospect falls in and out of rapport with you. And your job as a salesperson or someone who sells, and we could argue that we're all people who sell and we make our money by selling things. I won't say that we're all salespeople because everybody seems to want to argue that point. But if you make your money by people giving you money as a means to exchange, you might argue that you're a salesperson. If you sell any product, you need to, and you have a prospect, you go and you want to keep them in rapport with you. So your prospect falls out of rapport, you want to bring them back into rapport with you and your product and your company. So during the sale, you'll need to bring your prospect back into rapport. While you watch in restaurants, as your homework, you'll see people coming in and out of rapport. So let me take you to a scene in a restaurant that I just saw recently. This is a real life example. The other day I saw this man dominating a conversation with a woman at lunch. Her annoyance was palpable. He had no idea. He was just eating and talking. She was fidgeting in her seat. She was covering her mouth, subconsciously saying, shh. She was covering her mouth almost with two hands. Her feet were pointing towards the door. Her eyes were darting around the room. She looked like she was just trying to get away. I thought she was going to jump up and run out, pull the fire alarm. All signs pointed to her wanting to escape. She looked like she might want to kill him. Who knew? Who knew what was going to happen next? It was exciting. And then it happened. She didn't kill him. She became engaged in the conversation. She leaned in. She dropped her hands under her chin. She put her elbows on the table, despite manners. Her feet pointed towards the man. She, he never even stopped talking. He didn't know what was going on. He maybe stopped for a minute between forkfuls of food. He never noticed how annoyed she was. And luckily, she became interested and engaged again. He just power talked over her. Now, we don't have that choice. We can't do that. That's a horrible thing to do. You need to get your prospects engaged, so when you read your prospects' reactions, you can adjust your pitch, and that's why we want to learn body language. So you do this by getting a baseline, and you do that during your first encounters. They're really important. Most people are really nervous during their first meeting, so when you first meet somebody, first relax, because other people are judging you as well. But look and get people's baselines. Take note. This is when people indicate their levels of discomfort. So that's when you're going to take a mental note during this first encounter. So you can learn a lot from their nervous language. And we're especially focused on hands. Palms are a clue to whether a person is being honest and open. So when you talk with your palms displayed, people believe that you're telling the truth. So whether you're telling the truth or not, if you're talking with open palms, people believe you're telling the truth. An accused person will hold up one or two hands and say, I didn't do that. That's how a normal person acts when they're accused. So if you speak with open palm display, it encourages other people to speak honestly. So even you opening your palms and promotes honesty. Here again, your use of open palms helps people believe what you're saying is true. So make sure you're speaking the truth. We're here not to trick people. We're here to make sure that we're speaking the truth, that what you're saying is true. So many people intentionally display their palms when speaking to infer that they're an honest person. So similar to too much eye contact, someone who displays too much open palms should not be fully trusted. Too much eye contact would be more than 50% when you're talking. When someone else is talking to you, you give them contact, your full eye contact while they're talking. But while you're talking, more than 50% of eye contact is a little bit creepy, right? So when someone gives you more than 50% of eye contact while you're talking, it's usually because they're lying to you and they want to see if you believe them. It's the same thing. If somebody's talking to you with open palms, they might have read somewhere that means honesty. So it should set off alarm bells. So don't make the mistake of too much open palms. Don't try and seem honest. Just actually be honest. It's much easier. When someone holds up their palm and says, hey, I can't afford it, they're telling the truth. It's not an objection. And now here's where reading the body language and open palms really comes into play. They believe they're telling the truth. That doesn't necessarily make it the truth. So now as a salesperson, your skills and sales acumen comes into play of during your needs assessment, did you establish, is this really the truth or is this a limiting belief? For instance, my other company is a personal training certification. So when we teach trainers how to assess the needs of their clients and we do a lifestyle assessment, they find out where they spend their money on unhealthy things. Do they go out to eat? Are they going to extravagant restaurants? Do they before David Bach had his latte factor? We would just ask people, do you go to Starbucks? Do you have cappuccinos? How often? Somebody goes and has 5 cappuccinos a week. We could say to them, hey, look, why don't you just go to Starbucks and have a coffee instead? And then they can still have their caffeine if they cannot give up caffeine and they can afford 2-3 personal training sessions a week. So if you can find where they're spending that money and then have them reallocate it, then they can afford it. So it's not a truth, it's just a limiting belief. So that's where your skill set comes in as a salesperson. You don't want anyone pointing their finger. Try not to point your finger when you're making points either. It's really just one of the most annoying gestures that you can do. Instead, just curl your finger around and try and make it in the presidential way. Bill Clinton was a big finger pointer. President Obama kind of curls his finger around. When I do it, I look like I'm an old man saying, slow down, it's a neighborhood. It's just how I look doing it. So spotting lies and discomfort with hand body language. If a person is picking an imaginary lint off themselves, off their pants, off their desk. They're holding back, usually verbally expressing their disapproval. It could, if you're pitching, that's not a good sign, right? So you need to change your pitch, find out maybe what's behind the problem. Someone doesn't like what you're saying. If it's someone who's working for you, it's probably good to find out what's going on. With all these things, if something, let's go through a couple more of these, and then I'll tell you how to address them, the best way to address them. So hands folded in front, hand in hand, shows someone's feeling vulnerable. It's especially obvious in men, that one, when their hands are folded in front of their groin. Here's a positive one, right? When a prospect is rubbing their hands together, it means they're expecting something good. Usually it's very subtle, it's very small movement. When somebody has a defensive, or somebody's holding back what they're thinking. If somebody has their arms crossed, they're closed off, or they're feeling vulnerable and they're holding their bicep, or they have their arms crossed, they're protecting some part of their body, the vulnerable part of their body. Something that you say that puts someone in a position of defense. When you see them do it, that's not the time to address it. Just make a note, change your direction, and then come back around and address that area again. You don't want to shine a light on things. When somebody does something like that, usually they don't know they're doing it. So if you see a micro expression, or if you see somebody reacting to something, it's usually on a subconscious level. So there's no reason to come out and address it and say, you wouldn't say, hey, when I said this, you did that. You could say it 5 minutes later when the pressure's off, but it's a bit awkward to say. So the steeple hand gesture represents authority. It says, hey, I'm confident, I'm self-assured. I've used this on stage in front of like 1,500 people. You've seen people do it. Everybody does this one. Hey, the president does it. I think that's where we all got it from. It should be used. It can be used when you want to guarantee a look of confidence. You don't overuse it, because it loses impact when you overuse it during a presentation, and you lose credibility. We talked about pressing the forefinger into your thumb instead of pointing, so it doesn't look so aggressive. Make sure you don't walk around with your fist clenched. If you see other people, hand them something. Give them a pen. Put something in their hand if you can. If you see someone with clenched fists, you know that they're not hearing something they like. And don't panic. No matter how things are going, just like the conversation in the restaurant, they go up and down. Negative feelings can go away very quickly with rapport building. Just like people can pretend to be brave, they fake confidence with that steeple gesture. And you know how you can tell when people are faking confidence is when they're not talking, they're using the steeple gesture to cover up vital parts of their body. If somebody has a steeple gesture above their heart and they're not just listening, yes, they're protecting themselves, or maybe they're protecting their stomach. They're hiding body parts behind the steeple gesture. They're faking confidence. And sometimes the steeple gesture is used to hide self-touches. Every person has a different set of pacifying behaviors. And pacifying behaviors manifest during times of stress, and they may mean a person is lying. Only may be lying. It doesn't mean they are lying. It means they may be lying. Once you know a person's pacifier, you can use that info to gauge their comfort and discomfort around certain topics, which is seriously fun when it's your friends. So you can observe them as the conversation begins, and the pacifiers are added to behaviors that manifest during times of discomfort. Here's some of the more common ones. Some of them are just so cartoony, it's unbelievable, but they're true that people really do these things. So there's face touching, rubbing the back of the neck, hair stroking, which is more common in women, nose rubbing, the obvious and then the sneaky, playing with jewelry, for women covering the neck dimple, eye blocking, hand wringing, pulling at the collar. Oh, I have to ask my manager about that deal. Touching the forehead. I just bought a car and the guy was touching his forehead. It was hilarious. Picking an imaginary lint off the desk, their pants, their shirt. Rubbing the nose, eye rub, collar pull, finger in the mouth. Neck stretch and rub. Right? How cartoony is that? Hand over the mouth, like they don't want to say anything. Hands clenched behind the back. Excessive palm displays. Placing an object or a purse when somebody creates an invisible barrier by putting a drink or something between you. It's some of them are just ridiculous, but people do these things. And so these are the things that you're looking for. you first meet people, or if you sit down and you see what they're doing, how they set themselves up. This slide is all about what a lot of things mean, and I'll include this list and that other list as well. Let me go back. I'll just redo these. Here's some common pacifiers: face touching, rubbing the back of the neck, hair stroking, which is more common in women, rubbing the nose, the obvious and sneaky, like using the steeple to hide it, playing with jewelry, covering the neck dimple, rubbing the neck, eye blocking, so people can't see that you're lying, rubbing palms on the legs, hand wringing, pulling at the collar, touching the forehead, rubbing the back of the neck, picking imaginary lint off your shirt or pants, desk, finger in the mouth, neck, the neck stretch and rub. You ever see anyone do this? Well, I don't know if I can make that this Wednesday, hand over the mouth as if not wanting to say, what they're thinking. Another one that should be on this list is pursed lips, holding back what they really want to say. Hands clenched behind their back, which is exercising self-control, holding themselves back, literally holding themselves back. Excessive palm displays, and placing an object between you, like a purse or a drink, some kind of wall or barrier. And then, here's what some of these things mean. And almost always, it's disagreement or distress. It's not always dishonesty. None of these things always mean one thing. I'll include that. I'll include the list so that you can have them as well. So one thing to avoid is always avoid touching your face, because touching your face is always a bad thing. It always gets confused with dishonesty. And here's one that, we think, when you listen, touching your chin is a way to listen and it really engage. But when you accidentally touch your mouth, it goes to it tells someone unconsciously you wish they would stop talking. It says, I'm really engaged in listening, but I'm saying shh at the same time. So if someone says that to you, maybe they're disagreeing with what you're saying. So when you're reading someone else's body language, you might take into consideration if their finger is over their mouth saying shh to you in a non-verbal way, you might want to change what you're saying. So no one thing is enough. We want to look for clusters, and realize that many nonverbal cues may also mean distress, as we said before, disagreement, and no one single display equals dishonesty. Very important. So a nervous display may mean that there's something more, that it's making the other person uncomfortable, distressed, or angry. Well, your prospect's body language is going to give you instant feedback on how your sale is going. So the nonverbal cues that show distress or disagreement allow you to adjust your pitch as needed. So if a client displays a pacifier, it means that there's something more you need to do to make them comfortable enough to make a decision. And there's more that they say with their hands and nonverbal gestures than with the words, or with their words. There's more in what they say with their hands and other nonverbal gestures than what they say with their words. So your body language can also help close sales. So open hand gestures close sales. Even over the phone. So body language over the phone will close more sales. I've been selling over the phone for years and years and years. Since I was 13 years old. I had a work permit and said I was 14 years old, because you didn't have an ID to present when you were 13 years old. You just said you were 14, and I had a work permit. So your posture and movements have a great effect on tonality. So the way you stand, the way you hold your body affects how you speak and how your voice comes out. And posture creates states of empathy, honesty, certainty, and confidence. It creates a lot more than that, but those are the big three that you need to sell more stuff. These techniques work on people who want and need your products and services, as well as ones who don't. So as we always say, honesty, integrity, and ethics, right? Honesty, integrity, and ethics. Don't sell to people who don't need your stuff. There's so many people out there. You can make so much money with people who want your stuff, need your stuff, and that can afford your stuff. Don't just box people into buying your things that they don't want or need it and can't afford it. I mean, why, right? So these techniques will help you sell everyone who can be sold, and you can have fun while doing it, because It's hilarious. It's fun. You know how everything's going to come out. You're going to know what people are going to say before they're going to say it if you do it right. And a lot of this tonality and the body language techniques you learn are tied to your posture. So it sounds hokey, but it works. So when someone stands tall and confident, they feel powerful. When you're about to get on the phone, if you stand for 5 minutes in a power position, you will get on the phone and you'll feel more powerful. And if that's how you want to feel, that's an exercise you should do. So your posture affects how you feel. And when you slump over and you drop your chin, you feel less powerful. Positioning your body in a certain way relates to how you're feeling emotionally and allows you to speak in that tonality. And when you speak with your prospects, you can use your posture and body language to affect your tonality. So how do you close prospects with palm displays? Based on everything you've told me today, this is the perfect solution for you. That is certainty. Based on everything you've told me today, this is the perfect solution for you. Based on everything you've told me today, this is the perfect solution for you, right? I'm certain. I'm certain that based on everything you've told me today, right? I don't need to say I'm certain because my hands are saying I'm certain. This is the perfect solution for you. There is no doubt in my mind that this is the perfect solution for you, and my hands are telling you that. As silly as that sounds, this is a fact. I'll give you a sample sequence with palm displays, a sample closing sequence with palm displays. If you hold your hands behind your back, it shows you're feeling confident and superior, but it's just douchey, You don't, anytime that you show, you're not afraid to show your vulnerable parts, your stomach, your heart, your neck, it shows you're feeling superior. It shows you're confident. But when you open up your legs or you spread your arms in front of other people, especially women and you're a man, it's just kind of offensive. Hands on your hips and elbows out, it'll show that you're projecting dominance. And, you don't want to do that. It's a classic alpha male behavior of trying to take up as much space as possible. And if you ever walk into a prospect's office and they're jutting their chin out and they've got their hands on their hips like Superman, and they're trying to take up as much space as possible, give them some extra space and be prepared for a bone-crushing upper handshake attempt. But hands at the, see a little typo there, hands at the hips, elbows back is actually a submissive posture. So what you'll have to do with someone like that is make them feel powerful, and you'll have to, empower them and put them in a buying position, help them feel powerful enough to make a decision to buy today. Now, chances are you're never going to go into a meeting with your arms folded, but you might be presenting to somebody with their arms folded, and you might present to somebody with their arms folded. And generally, you don't want to present to someone with their arms folded. You want to find a way to open their arms up, and you might pace and lead, and you might fold your arms and then open your arms and fold your arms and open your arms and see if you can get them to do it. As ridiculous as it sounds, that's an NLP trick that will pace and lead them. And if their arms are folded and their legs are crossed, you don't want to pitch them. But the rule is, if you show up to a sales presentation, you pitch everyone, because 100% of the people that you do not pitch will not buy. 100% of the people that you do not pitch will not buy. If you go to a sales presentation, you always pitch. You always ask for the sale. Because no matter how bad it goes in your head, if you spill soup, knock over the microwave, start a fire, knock over the fire extinguishers, when the place is burning down and the fire department's carrying you out, you ask for the sale. You never not ask for the sale. Every time you ask for the sale. There's never an excuse not to ask for the sale. Every time. If your prospect has their arms folded, don't pitch them yet, but if they don't unfold their arms, you pitch them before you leave. So we look for these postures in others, and you avoid them in yourself. If you see yourself with your hands clenched, people are going to see you as annoyed, so you just avoid that.